Hello everybody, welcome back. This is Mystic Games in my lovely intro. Today we're going to be talking about Warcraft Rumble, and specifically we're going to be talking about Alliance Minis. So I did a tier list on this. I got some feedback. Quite a few people seem to have liked my tier list, but then there was also a couple that said it wasn't helpful. So I was like, how can I make a more helpful video on Warcraft Rumble? And I have a lot of people just pushing for tutorials in a sense for a lot of my videos. Like, can you try to help teach the game or, help us use things more effectively. So I thought might as well do the same thing for Warcraft Rumble. So I'm going to do Alliance, then I'll probably do Beast, Blackrock Mountain, Horde, Undead, and Cenarian. And we'll go through the current minis and we'll talk about their strengths and weaknesses. I'm not really going to do a tier list per se, but I'm going to say like what ones I think are useful comparatively and what decks they run well in. I think the easiest way to start this is to look at our leadership here. So for Alliance, you have three leaders. You have Tyrion, who is your healing leader. He's a solid tank. He can take a lot of hits. You have Jaina, who is your spellcaster leader. She is to you're going to probably want 2+ spells in her rotation. I usually run 2, but you could go with 3. There are builds for that. And then you have Maeve, who is essentially, you want unbounds in her deck, preferably the good ones, and then you cycle them out to get her lower costed, and then you throw her down to do a ton of damage. We're going to specifically look at Tyrion first. I think he's a great place to start. I think all the Alliance leaders are very strong. But I feel like Tyrion, you can make a Death Ball. And we're going to talk about the Death Ball with Tyrion. So, Tyrion is a tank. Oh my god, I forgot about all the ads here. Sorry, guys. Tyrion is a tank. He has good health. He is armored, so he reduces physical damage. He has healing. And I like how it says a hammer of cleaving. He doesn't cleave. He hits one target. But he is essentially a healer, and he can take some hits on top of it. As you can see, his best talent is Divine Shield. It's the most used. I would argue that it is actually the best talent. This is my favorite talent to use. By the Light is also a good backup. It heals twice, but generally, once he gets that 5-second shield, he just doesn't die. And they just waste their time attacking him, which means if you have any minis backing up Tyrion at this point, they will generally clear the enemy minis, and he will survive and then heal back up by the time they can actually hit him again. So you're generally going to win in and just have a Death Ball going. So what Tyrion is good at is you build a deck around him specifically that is a healing deck, I like to call them. I like to add the Frostwolf Shaman to his deck with armor, and then you have another healer that you can drop with him. I also like to put some sort of AoE like the Huntress or Chimera. Just those 3 units alone in the deck are very powerful. We're not going to go too deep into other units, but that's the focus of Tyrion, is you kind of want to drop him, have him either tank and then heal everyone else, or create a team of healers and have, essentially multiple healers supporting, and then just keep dropping as many healers as you can to create a Death Ball. That's what we call them. I'm going to go back, if it lets me go back. There we go. We might actually want to open separate tabs and going forward. We're going to talk about Jaina next. Jaina is your arcane spell leader. So, increases the level of your spells by 3 while Jaina is in play. So generally what you want to do is you want to drop Jaina and then you want to play a spell. She has frost attacks, so she's ranged, she shoots out frost attacks, she costs a cheap amount of gold. She's single target. She is okay. She's an okay unit. You're really dropping her to get the effect of increasing your spell damage. And then she does elemental damage, so she's good against like armored tanks. Her best ability is clear casting, which is spells cost 1 less. Pretty much you drop Jaina, it buffs all your spells right here, as it says, by 3. It also then reduces the cost of the first spell that you cast after Jaina, as long as you play it immediately. It has to be after her. If you use anything else, it will cancel out the effect. So you can do like a 3-cost spell for 2, which is really strong. This tends to go very well with like execute, which is a horde spell. Blizzard is another great spell to use with. A lot of Jaina decks are Blizzard with execute. I highly recommend it. It's a PvP deck as well if you're looking for PvP. I tend to focus more on PvE. I find it a lot more enjoyable. Another good backup for her is Flurry. It pretty much just allows her Frostbolt to more or less AoE. So it just slows other enemies. But generally you drop her, you start casting your spells to clear the enemy waves, and then you throw down a couple support units that can push and actually take things. And that's how Jaina works. Next we're going to talk about Maeve, which I think is the next most important one. She is the third and final leader. She has stealth when you drop her. She breaks stealth when she attacks. She's unbound, so you can throw her anywhere. And her cost is reduced by 1 for each unbound. Generally, around this character, you want to make a deck with normally her, and then you have 6 slots. 3 of those slots you generally want to make sure are unbound, if not 4. Then you can make 2 other slots kind of as filler. The best thing for her is Remorseless, which is essentially she deals 2 double damage for 2 seconds after killing enemies, which is fantastic. Everything else is okay. You guys can see them there. I don't really use them. I don't recommend them. Pretty much Remorseless is what you're going to use. Honestly, I don't think any of her talents are that great, if I'm being honest. I think this, because you have to kill an enemy, actually makes it far worse. If it was just when she attacks from stealth, she gets double damage for like the first attack, that would actually probably be preferred. Because her actual just, striking a minion isn't that great. If she did like an AoE multiple times, it would be way better. But she's solid, so essentially if you use this character, you are going to want to build about 4 unbounds into her deck, and then essentially 2 other slots that are nice push minions like tanks, maybe with a healer, something like that. That's generally a solid build for her. Or maybe a spell. It depends on what PvE thing you're going against in the sense of how you're going to use her. But generally 3 to 4 unbounds is pretty much guaranteed. So that's the leadership for the Alliance. Now that we've covered that, we're going to talk about each of these units for the Alliance, because this is essentially an Alliance spotlight. We're going to go right in order. I like Arcane Blast, so we're going to open that up. This is the first one we're talking about. What Arcane Blast is a nice cycle spell. It costs 1 gold, but it goes up by 1 every time you cast it. So it stays in your hand, goes up. You can cast it again. It's now 2. You cast it again, it goes up, it becomes 3. And then as soon as you want to stop casting it and cycle it out, you just move to a different mini, and it goes away, pulls the next mini into that spot, and then you have to wait for the rotation again. Arcane is elemental, and it's very good for armored targets. There's a couple, like, spell sequences starts at rank 3 and ends at rank 4 is fine. And then amplification is another solid one. You can see it's not as used as arcane power. I actually like amplification more because it gets bigger and bigger, and stronger obviously as well as you go up. And I normally go to 3 gold when I use it, so I cycle through about 6 gold. And I can do a solid amount of damage to a lot of targets by doing that with amplification. I can understand why people might want to use it at 3 and then cast it at 4. Not for me though. I think Arcane Blast is very good, and it's very niche uses. It's good at starting off at like clearing small cycle minis or weaker health minis, and then as you cycle up its power, it becomes better at clearing, larger, stronger minions, or at least damaging them. You then have Blizzard, which is another spell for the Alliance. What Blizzard does is it essentially slows everything it hits, and it deals a good amount of damage in a very good area. Cold Snap is the best because pretty much anything that walks into it gets frozen to the ground and then takes all of the damage, which is fantastic. It also, if you're using a mini that has range, and the enemy minis don't really have range, and you drop Cold Snap Blizzard on them, and you have range minis walk in, they can then long range melee targets that are getting killed by the Blizzard, as well as they're just going to be taking a ton of additional damage because they can't actually make it to your ranged units, and then they're just getting, spears chucked at them or whatever it might be, while also getting slammed with giant icicles. Blizzard's a really good spell. This is one of my favorite spells. If you're not sure what spell to use, Blizzard is a very solid choice in almost any leader's deck. So if you're looking for a spell and you don't have too many high-cost minis and a 4-cost mini is going to work, a Cold Snap Blizzard is fantastic. Next, we're going to talk about Holy Nova because it's the last spell. Let's do all the spells first. Holy Nova is one of my favorite spells, but I think it has a very niche usage. By that, I mean it's not good in all decks. Normally, when I do Tyrion, I actually like to put Holy Nova in there because I like to make death balls, and Holy Nova allows me to create a more effective death ball because I can control healing when Tyrion and my Earth Shield Frostwolf Shaman are unable to heal. I can throw this down to keep all my minis alive, and then they will start healing again. So it tops off your minis, keeps everybody alive. I do like to use the Inner Fire, which is these are actually about the same. I prefer Inner Fire because it gives everything armored and resist. So essentially it builds resistance, and I'm usually trying to make a death ball, so I already have some sort of healing with this. And once you drop this, it just makes them very hard to kill. And as they're being, someone's trying to kill them, your other healer is going to start healing them, and you're generally going to win the fight. And then you can essentially this becomes moot. Like, you're never probably going to have to drop Holy Nova again because you're going to have additional Tyrians, you're going to have additional Frostwolf Shamans that are going to be just super healing at all times, and then you don't even have to worry about it. That being said, Holy Nova, good spell. Good cost, not too expensive, and with Inner Fire, it can really, really stack a push for you. But it's really made for specific decks. Like, you generally aren't going to just drop a Holy Nova. Holy Nova is meant to essentially keep units alive for a short duration until you can either heal them up or deal additional damage. Generally, I think it works better in Death Ball teams because it just allows you to keep pushing. So now we're going to go into Defias Bandits, and we're just going to talk about all the other, non-leader minis and spell minis at this point. Defias Bandits are extremely good. So they're 1 gold, and they're in stealth, so they can't be hit until they break stealth unless you hit them with some sort of spell. They are extremely fragile, but they will stun a target upon hitting it, and each one stuns the target additional time. So if you have one hit it, and then there's a brief, because normally there is some sort of brief interlapse between them, and then the other one hits it, it actually resets the stun, which is better, because obviously you want to get as much stun time as possible. Because they're so cheap, they are pretty much like a unit you drop and you use as a control mini, or you can just drop them in a lane to kill a kobold or something like that. But they have a lot of usages. So Pick Lock is the favorite of most people. Generally what that does is just it gives you 2 gold on chest. It's super useful. This is one of these units that you guys should really get, and it's important to get for an Alliance mini, because this is a mini that is very useful because of the extra gold. And then the poison one is a backup, is pretty solid as well. But the Defias Bandits are just a good solid unit. They have a lot of different usages, and I highly recommend picking up the Bandit, getting the gold, and then when you can, get the poison. But they make a lot of strategies possible. that you wouldn't have if you didn't have the bandit. We're going to talk about footmen next. Footmen are a little bit different. Footmen are a unit that I wouldn't say is a need. Not saying don't get footmen, but if you have a choice between bandits and footmen for, like a choice, I would go with bandits first. They are solid. They're a 5 cost mini though, so these are going to be one of your main like big minis. Normally you probably do 1 to 2 big minis in your deck, and then you're going to have a lot, you try to make an even deck. So you're not going to be having a lot of 5 cost plus minis. They summon 4 units. Each one is armored, and they have pretty good health. These guys are solid with Tyrion. If you have a healer, these guys are a lot better. You can see people here like Shield Bash. One of my favorite ones is Fortification, because I like to use a lot of healing Death Ball type builds. The issue with Fortification and as I said, the Footmen in general, is there's just better options for tanks generally. They aren't bad, it's just for the cost and what they do, there's better things out there. But you have different options. Not a recommended unit for a Alliance unit, but it is not a bad unit. Griffin Rider, solid, very powerful unit. Highly recommend people pick this up and they try to upgrade this unit, especially early on in the game. This is one of those units you want to get. The Griffin Rider with the +3 range is extremely strong. I'm actually surprised to see airdrop here, because most people I've seen actually like Odin's Fury. So it's surprised to see that this is actually lower. I would think that this would be the highest, and then it would be Odin's Fury. I think these two give you the most usage out of the Griffin Rider the way you want to use it. So the Griffin's a cycle, so it's just a cheap mini. So you can throw it in, and it does good damage. It has good range. If you add the additional range, it's even better. It can like essentially outrange things and do a lot of damage, and especially if you put it behind something. Essentially, the 2 cost of gold that you're going to play on this Griffin, you'll generally make the money back for playing it. That being said, it is a good mini to get. This is one of those minis that I will say I strongly suggest. It's very good in usage. It's good against melee targets. Obviously, they can't hit it. If you get the range, it's decent against ranged units. The issue is it's very fragile. But if you get the additional range, you drop something in front of it, it will generally support very well. It's also a physical damage mini. For a flying unit, a lot of the flying units tend to be elemental, just so that's something else that makes it very nice. It's one of the few flying minis that is a physical damager that has some range on it. Next is the Harvest Golem. This is a good unit, but this tends to be more of a PvP control unit. It does have usages, essentially similar usages in PvE, but I wouldn't say it is as good in PvE as it is in PvP. And that's because Unstable Core, the talent, gives it a stun. That being said, is this a good mini to pick up? Yes. I would argue that if you plan on playing a lot more PvE, it's not as important as the other minis like the Bandit and the Griffin, but it is a solid tank unit. Next, we're going to talk about the Huntress, which I have a love-hate relationship with the Huntress. So what the Huntress has resistance, so it takes reduced damage from elemental. It's quick, and it can AoE. Both Shadow Meld and Elven Might are both solid choices. I would argue that Elven Might is a little nicer to have. This is one of those minis that you put in your deck, and if you have this mini, you're going to have this and maybe one more high-cost mini, and then you're generally going to want to do 3 and lower minis a lot of the time. So you're going to drop a solid tank in front of this and then send the Huntress. This is a good unit, but it's better in decks where you can control its movement. Because the Huntress is fast, it will generally outrun your squad, so you need to put it behind a tank that either blocks its movement, so you get more usage out of it, or you need to put it in a deck with a faster movement build. That being said, I would actually put the Huntress as a mini that you probably should grab because it is nice to have in certain situations, but it is, I would arguably say, more of a situational mini kind of like the Foe Reaper that we just kind of went over. So, Huntress good, hits multiple targets, good for the back line. The issue is it's fast, so you got to be aware of that. Next we have the Mountaineer. The Mountaineer has a bear with it. It's essentially a ranged tank. The issue is it costs 6 gold, and the bear, if anything can hit the rifleman dies and you only have the bear, or the bear dies and you only have the rifle. This becomes extremely ineffective. Also, all the talents are pretty poor on the Mountaineer. None of these are really good. Most of the time you're probably going to want Intimidation, but it doesn't really help you because generally the bear's in front anyways. And if you're going to kill the Mountaineer, you use a spell to get rid of the Mountaineer, and then the bear survives and it just can't do anything. So, Mountaineer is one of those units that I would say avoid. It doesn't have many uses. There's not many like strategies in PvE or PvP to use this mini. I don't want to say it's a bad mini. I do enjoy this mini. It's a very weird mini. It serves a purpose of a light, I would say, argue a light tank, and then a decent ranged unit. If you didn't have to pay 6 money for this, I would actually say it'd probably be, if this was a 5 cost, I would say it's a pretty good, but for 6, I don't think it's that great. And we're down to the last 2. We have Safe Pilot. Safe Pilot is a must-have. I pretty much think you start with Safe Pilot, but pretty much Gnomish Cloaking Device is preferable for the Safe Pilot. It's generally the best ability. The Safe Pilot, what she does is she kind of acts like a spell. She comes down, hits an area, explodes, does a good amount of damage, and then she will normally get 1 shot off, if not more, depending on what's going on. You can use it to hit the back line, like kill a rifleman. Like while your people are fighting the bear, you drop her in the back, drop her on the rifle. She hits the rifle. If the rifle doesn't immediately get killed, she will shoot it. He'll generally die. And then she'll help clear the bear or clear anything else in the back line. And it allows you to take out backline units. Because it's an unbound unit, you can drop it anywhere on the map, and it's extremely effective. Highly recommend her. Highly recommend the Cloaking Device with her. Just a solid unit. And then you have Worgen last. So Worgen is a stealth unit. It's unbound, so you can drop it anywhere you want. That is nice. It has ambush, so it deals more damage from the stealth. So that it hits, deals essentially double damage. It's good at taking out backline units, similar to the pilot. The only difference is that it has to break stealth, hit the target, and then it's open to attack. Whereas the pilot essentially does an AoE spell, deals its damage, and then normally we'll be able to do an additional attack. So, generally the Worgen will be nice. Premeditation is an ambush by 50%. This is my favorite one to use, so I actually agree with the 86% of people using it. I think this is probably the strongest. Lone Wolf is actually decent too. If you have no allies, you get your gold back. I don't really care about Bloodlust because it requires you killing and then gaining Bloodlust, but the issue is he generally wants to drop on something that he's going to kill and not die and go back into stealth and then ambush again. So normally you want this, and normally you're going to use him as either a Lone Wolf. I would actually say it'd probably be your backup talent. So real quick to kind of do a final thing, because I'm not doing this in tier list mode, but for importance of usage, unit-wise, Blizzard's Solid is probably the best spell for them. Arcane Blast and Holy Nova both kind of have niche usage. Defias Bandit's extremely good unit. Griffin Rider's a good unit. Huntress, Footman, Harvest Golem, Mountaineer are kind of situational. Safe Pilot, good unit. Worgen, I would say he's more situational. And then all your leaders do have purpose in the Alliance, so I do want to say that. She's very unique with the Unbound, very unique with spells, and very unique with healing. Anyways, this isn't like super in-depth, but I hope this does help some people. I don't want to go too late into these videos and spend too much time, but I hope this helps some people help pick their minis and understand what their minis are meant to do. This is a great site if you guys are looking for stats on minis and talents and what other people are doing. Anyways, I'll catch you guys in the next video, and have a great day.